As the clock strikes midnight, people across the city cheer as fireworks light up the sky. Within moments, the celebration turns into complete chaos. People in different parts of the city suddenly begin collapsing under mysterious circumstances, and no one can figure out where it is happening from. Panic spreads quickly as everyone runs for safety. At the same time, a young police officer named Eleanor is at a local bar responding to a disturbance. The owner has called the police because of an unruly customer. While she is speaking with him, Eleanor notices several police vehicles rushing through the streets with their emergency lights flashing. Realizing something serious has happened, she immediately heads toward the scene. When Eleanor arrives, she finds the victim's wife and daughter in complete shock. She does her best to comfort them while other officers begin examining the area. Using specialized equipment, Eleanor and her partner estimate where the incident may have originated. Their investigation leads them to an apartment in a nearby building. However, just as officers prepare to enter, a sudden blast tears through the apartment. Police immediately begin evacuating the entire building. Eleanor instructs the other officers to record everyone leaving because the suspect could be blending into the crowd. She also starts recording with her own camera. A few moments later, firefighters arrive and everyone focuses on helping residents get to safety. Determined to make sure no one is left behind, Eleanor rushes up the smoke-filled staircase. Before reaching the apartment, she is overcome by the heavy smoke and loses consciousness. A short time later, she wakes up as another officer places an oxygen mask over her face. A paramedic checks her condition and advises her to take some time to recover. Meanwhile, investigators discuss the apartment's owner. They learn that he never actually lived there and had always rented it out. The suspect had apparently entered the apartment without permission, used it as a temporary location during the incident, and then triggered the blast before leaving, likely to remove any trace of his presence. After discussing the situation, everyone returns downstairs. Eleanor's supervisor reminds her not to take unnecessary risks, explaining that going upstairs alone could have put her in serious danger. Later, all of the officers gather for a briefing. Eleanor joins the meeting, where they are informed that an FBI special agent has been assigned to lead the investigation. The team is then introduced to Special Agent Jeffrey Landmark. Landmark explains that they are dealing with a highly skilled individual. He believes the suspect is not a terrorist, but someone who blends into everyday society. He warns the officers that the suspect is extremely intelligent, has left almost no trace behind, and remains a complete mystery. Because of that, everyone must stay alert and pay close attention to every detail if they hope to identify the individual behind the incident. After the briefing, the officers applaud. Meanwhile, Eleanor, one of the junior officers, is assigned to serve coffee. After finishing, she walks into the break room, where another officer says he believes the suspect could be an international criminal with a larger objective. Eleanor disagrees. She says she believes the suspect is simply a deeply troubled individual who may have been seeking personal relief rather than pursuing a political motive. At that moment, Landmark walks in and overhears the conversation. He finds Eleanor's perspective surprisingly interesting and asks her to explain further. Eleanor says that, in her opinion, the suspect wasn't trying to spread fear alone. Instead, it seemed as though carrying out the incident gave him a sense of relief, which is why she believes he may attempt something similar again. Impressed by her insight, Landmark asks for her name. Eleanor introduces herself, and after finishing her shift, she returns home. To relax after the stressful day, she spends some time swimming before finally getting some much-needed sleep. The next morning, Chief Jackson calls Eleanor and tells her that Landmark wants to meet her at a cafe right away. When she arrives, Landmark is once again arguing with Capleton. This time, Capleton insists on keeping the city's beaches open even though the investigation is still ongoing. It becomes clear that he is more concerned about protecting the governor's public image than taking additional public safety measures. After Capleton leaves, Eleanor sits down with Landmark for a cup of coffee. During their conversation, Landmark tells her that she's either an exceptional detective or someone who understands the person's way of thinking better than anyone else. That's exactly why her observations caught his attention. He then surprises Eleanor with an unexpected offer. He wants her to work alongside him as part of the investigation. Eleanor is completely caught off guard. She's only a junior police officer, so she can't understand why an experienced FBI agent would place so much trust in her. Landmark explains that her instincts are unlike anyone else's. She notices details that most people miss, and he believes her perspective could help the team solve the mystery much sooner. A few moments later, Detective Jack McKenzie arrives at the cafe. Looking at both of them, Landmark says they are the only two people he fully trusts on this case. He asks them to work together and help uncover the truth as quickly as possible. The three of them then head to the police station, where the investigative task force is already in the middle of a strategy meeting. Every officer is focused on finding the next clue. They carefully review surveillance footage collected from different parts of the city, hoping to notice something unusual. Despite checking every angle, nothing useful appears. While everyone else discusses different theories, Eleanor quietly studies the case files, maps, and reports on her own. She believes that even the smallest overlooked detail could become the key to solving the mystery. Around the room, investigators begin sharing their ideas. Some believe the person behind the incident may have spent nearly 2 years preparing for everything. Others point out that the equipment involved appears to be decades old, making it extremely difficult to trace through modern records. When Landmark realizes that other agencies have started making independent decisions, he immediately takes control of the meeting. He reminds everyone that he is leading the investigation and that every major decision must be coordinated through his team. Otherwise, valuable information could easily be overlooked. Eleanor then suggests tracing the history of similar vintage equipment to find out where it may have changed hands over the years. Landmark likes the idea and assigns the team to follow that lead. The investigation continues at the city's medical examination center, where specialists carefully review every available detail. The team notices an unusual level of consistency in every case. Everything points to someone who is incredibly patient, highly disciplined, and remarkably precise. Jack shares his opinion, saying the individual may have received advanced professional training at some point. At the same time, the investigators realize there doesn't appear to be any personal connection between the people involved, suggesting that a much larger motive may be driving the entire situation. Eleanor can't stop thinking about the mysterious person behind it all. Whoever planned everything managed to stay almost completely invisible while leaving behind very few clues. Just then, the team receives an urgent update. A person of interest has been identified. Everyone rushes to the location where federal agent Frank Graber is already coordinating the operation. He explains that a man has locked himself inside an apartment and refuses to cooperate, making officers believe he could be connected to the ongoing investigation. As the situation develops, it quickly becomes tense. When officers finally make contact, the man attempts to escape from the building. After the scene is carefully reviewed, investigators discover that he has no connection to the case. Nothing links him to the ongoing investigation, and what initially looked like a major breakthrough turns out to be an unrelated lead. Although disappointed, Landmark reminds the entire team that every lead must be carefully verified before reaching conclusions. Rushing the process can easily send an investigation in the wrong direction. With no solid lead remaining, the task force returns to the beginning and starts reviewing every possibility once again. Their next step is to interview the painters who had previously worked inside the apartment building. One painter explains that one coworker is currently busy with family matters, another left the job a long time ago, and a third had recently developed an interest in marksmanship practice, making him someone worth speaking with. Investigators interview all 3 painters individually, but none of the conversations produces a significant breakthrough. One had suffered a broken arm and had not worked there for quite some time, while the other 2 appear cooperative and consistent throughout the interviews. Even so, following standard investigative procedures, the team quietly collects routine forensic samples from the drinking glasses used during the interviews. In a case this complex, even the smallest overlooked detail could eventually become the missing piece of the puzzle. Meanwhile, Eleanor is officially transferred to the FBI task force assigned to the investigation. As part of the onboarding process, she undergoes a routine medical evaluation. The results reveal that she has an iron deficiency, along with a few other health-related concerns that will require follow-up care. After arriving at FBI headquarters, Eleanor spends hours reviewing surveillance footage once again. She carefully watches every camera angle, hoping to notice something everyone else has missed. Despite going through the recordings frame by frame, she still can't find a meaningful clue. When Landmark learns about Eleanor's medical report, he is frustrated that she never mentioned it earlier. He believes every member of the team should be completely transparent during such an important investigation. His reaction disappoints Eleanor, leaving her wondering whether she has already lost his trust. She begins questioning herself, wondering how she can prove that she truly deserves to be part of the team and help solve the city's biggest mystery. Later that evening, Eleanor is walking home alone after a long and exhausting day. Landmark pulls over beside her and offers to give her a ride. He also apologizes for the way he reacted earlier. At first, Eleanor lets him know that his words genuinely upset her. After a brief conversation, however, she accepts his apology and agrees to ride with him. On the way, Landmark invites her to dinner. As they drive through the city, the two continue discussing the investigation. Landmark admits that the pressure is becoming overwhelming. Days have passed, yet they still have no clear lead, and senior officials are expecting results as quickly as possible. Eleanor understands exactly how he feels. She knows the entire team is carrying an enormous responsibility. A short time later, they arrive at Lamarck's home. During dinner, the conversation becomes more personal. Eleanor opens up about her past. She explains that her life had not always been easy and that she had made several difficult choices while trying to find direction. She also reveals that she had previously applied to join the FBI but wasn't accepted because she wasn't emotionally ready at the time. She shares that painful experiences from her childhood had a lasting impact on her life. Those experiences shaped the person she eventually became and forced her to spend years rebuilding her confidence. Eleanor explains that joining the police force was never just about having a career. For her, it was a chance to rebuild her life, help others, and move beyond her past. Listening carefully, Lamarck begins to understand why Eleanor is able to think differently from everyone else. He believes that her unique perspective may help her understand the mysterious individual better than anyone else on the task force. The following day, a busy shopping mall is filled with families enjoying their day, browsing stores, and eating in the food court. At the same time, security staff notice a man acting unusually inside one of the restrooms. Concerned by his behavior, they approach him to check if everything is okay. Within moments, the peaceful afternoon turns into a major emergency. Shoppers begin running in every direction as confusion spreads throughout the building. By the time first responders and federal investigators arrive, the entire scene has already been secured. Everyone is stunned by how quickly the situation unfolded. Security cameras reveal that the mysterious man changed his appearance before quietly leaving the mall. Although his face is never clearly captured, Eleanor notices something important while reviewing the footage. She believes the man had originally come to the mall for an ordinary reason. It wasn't until security approached him that the situation unexpectedly escalated. The only useful clue left behind is a shirt the man discarded before leaving. Unfortunately, investigators soon learn that the clothing was accidentally transported to the city's landfill along with the rest of the day's trash. Without wasting any time, Lamarck sends Eleanor and Jack McKenzie to search for it, hoping it may still provide an important lead. Eleanor and Jack McKenzie enter the supermarket pretending to be a couple. While looking around, they notice a group of people whose behavior seems suspicious. Believing they may have found the right lead, the team moves in. Within seconds, the situation turns into complete chaos. A confrontation breaks out and everyone nearby rushes for cover. By the time everything is over, several people have been seriously affected. Later, investigators uncover the truth. The entire incident had been triggered by a false report. The people involved had fabricated the story simply to attract attention and appear important. The outcome leaves the entire task force frustrated. Valuable time has been lost, resources have been wasted, and the pressure on Lamarck continues to grow. Senior officials become increasingly critical of the investigation. When they learn more about Eleanor's past, they begin questioning Lamarck's decision to bring her onto the team. Lamarck stands up for Eleanor without hesitation. He insists that she is one of the most capable officers involved in the investigation. Despite his support, the decision has already been made, and both of them are removed from the case. Although the setback deeply disappoints Lamarck, Eleanor refuses to give up. She continues reviewing every clue on her own, convinced that the answer is still hiding somewhere in the evidence. Eventually, she discovers that one of the painters had not been completely honest during questioning. Eleanor immediately tracks him down. At first, he refuses to cooperate, but after further questioning, he finally admits the truth. He explains that he had hired another man to cover his job in exchange for money and food. The man's name was Dean. The investigators ask a sketch artist to create a portrait based on the information they have collected. They then visit several butcher shops until someone finally recognizes the face. The man is identified as Dean Posse. Eleanor and Lamarck then travel to Dean's family home in search of more answers. There, they learn that Dean's father had been a shooting instructor, explaining how Dean developed such remarkable precision over the years. As they continue asking questions, Dean's mother notices the investigators outside. At first, she refuses to say anything, but after an emotional conversation, she decides to tell them what she knows. She explains that Dean experienced a traumatic accident during childhood that left both physical and emotional scars. Later, he was unable to pursue the future he had hoped for, and over time he became increasingly isolated from the people around him. While listening carefully, Eleanor suddenly notices something unusual outside the house. Two cups are sitting on a nearby table. Instantly, she realizes someone else may still be nearby. She quietly warns Landmark, but before anyone has time to react, an unexpected long-range impact throws the entire situation into chaos. Landmark is seriously injured and collapses. For a brief moment, Eleanor freezes in shock. Dean's mother quickly tells her not to move, fearing that any sudden action could make the situation even worse. Then, gathering all of her courage, she walks outside and tries to speak to her son. She calmly asks him to stop running and encourages him to accept help, assuring him that people want to understand what he has been through. But Dean remains completely distant, showing no sign that her words are reaching him. Realizing that she can no longer change the course of events, she makes a heartbreaking decision that leaves everyone stunned. The emotional moment causes Dean to step out from his hiding place. Holding the long-range rifle in his hands, he slowly faces the house where Eleanor is waiting. Inside, Eleanor remains perfectly still. To her surprise, Dean doesn't make another aggressive move. Instead, he slowly places the rifle on a nearby table. Recognizing that this may be her only chance to reach him, Eleanor begins speaking calmly and carefully, hoping to build enough trust to bring the long and exhausting investigation to a peaceful conclusion. Eleanor calmly tells Dean that the FBI asked her to speak with him because they believe she understands the way he thinks better than anyone else. She explains that she can see the pain he's carrying, but says that hurting innocent people will never bring him the peace he's been searching for. She encourages him to surrender, promising that he will be given professional help instead of being treated as just another case. Dean remains silent for a moment before finally speaking. He says he has lost faith in humanity. In his eyes, people have filled the world with noise, pollution, and endless chaos. He believes he has been trying to fix a broken world, even though everyone else sees it very differently. He then quietly admits that he no longer sees a future for himself. Dean tells Eleanor that he is willing to surrender under one condition. He asks her to promise that when everything is over, his final wishes will be respected. Knowing she needs to keep the conversation going, Eleanor agrees. Just then, the sound of approaching police sirens echoes through the area. Dean immediately assumes Eleanor has betrayed him. Overcome by emotion, he forces Eleanor aside, restrains her, and rushes outside. The situation quickly escalates as officers move into position, turning the area into a tense standoff. Additional law enforcement units arrive within minutes, making the scene even more intense. Still trying to calm him down, Eleanor calls out from inside, telling him that the situation doesn't have to end this way. She pleads with him to stop before anyone else gets hurt. By now, however, Dean is no longer listening. When every effort fails, she manages to free herself and steps in to stop him before his plan can move forward. During the struggle, Dean is seriously injured, forcing him to retreat into the nearby woods. A short time later, Eleanor frees herself completely and quickly updates the rest of the task force. Together, they follow Dean's trail deep into the forest. After a lengthy search, they finally locate him. Exhausted and weakened, Dean stands surrounded by officers. They repeatedly ask him to surrender peacefully. For a brief moment, it seems as though he might comply. Instead, he makes one final move that forces the officers to respond according to their training. The long investigation finally comes to an end, bringing closure to the case that had shaken the entire city. Afterward, FBI officials advise Eleanor not to discuss every detail of the final confrontation publicly because the incident remains under official review. In recognition of her remarkable instincts and investigative work, she's offered a new position as an FBI analyst. At first, Eleanor turns the offer down. However, she is later informed that continuing the investigation without authorization could also lead to disciplinary action. Before accepting the position, Eleanor makes one request. She asks the FBI to formally recognize Landmark for his leadership, dedication, and commitment throughout the investigation, believing he deserves the honor more than anyone else. The officials agree. Only then does Eleanor accept the offer. After the case is officially closed, and with that, the story comes to an end.